Hello and welcome. This is the third video in a series accompanying the Joomla tutorial developing a Hello World MVC component. And today we're going to be looking at adding a menu type to the site part. And we're also going to be looking in detail at the views and layout side of Joomla. But first of all, let's get this menu type added. The situation at the moment is that we can add new menu items to the site, but really what we want to have is the ability to add a menu item which points to our Hello World component. As you can see here, it's not one of the menu item types which is listed, so this is what we're going to fix in this step. So in terms of code, this is fairly simple. We just take this file here, bring it along to our code base, put it into a new file, and then save that as default.xml in this site views Hello World TMPL directory, as you can see there. We'll also go to our overall XML file and change the version number to 3. And then we'll just check everything is saved. Yeah. And then we'll go here and create a new version of the code in a zip file. Call it number 3. And then off to our admin functionality, and we'll install that latest version. Here it is. Successfully installed. Now hopefully when we go to add a new menu item, we should see the possibility of selecting Hello World. Yes, indeed, there it is. Now this looks a bit funny, but this is something we're going to fix in a later step. So we'll select that, and we'll call our link HW, and we'll save that. Now whenever we go to our home page and refresh it, we should see here, yes, the menu item for our Hello World component, and when we click on that, that's the message that we get, Hello World. So it's successfully going to our home Hello World component. However, what is really going on behind the scenes here? And look at this, what I thought we'd look at is the content side of things. If you create a new menu item, you have the ability to select a number of different menu item types which are associated with articles. We've got 7 in this list here, and if we compare that with, we go to our Hello World Joomla instance components. Now content is the Joomla component which looks after articles, and we go to views, we find that there are 6 subdirectories under views, and if we go to the TMPL folder, we'll start seeing some of these XML files that we just did for Hello World. So there's one there under article, there's one there under archive article, under categories as well. Under category we've got 2 there, under featured we've got 1, and under form we've got 1. So if we count those up, we've got 5 of these have got 1 XML file, and the last one, category, has got 2 XML files in, and those really equate to those 7 options that we have under articles. Now I'm running Joomla 3.7 something, so if you're running a later version of Joomla, it could be that there are more options here, but you should still find that the number of options here equates to the number of XML files. So these XML files really relate directly to those menu items. And you'll also notice that with each of these we've got a view.html.php file in each of these folders, as well as in the tmpl file directory default.php. Some of these have other files which are really subsidiary files to the default.php. And in the category file you've got blog.php plus some subsidiary files to it, plus default.php and a couple of subsidiary files there. So if you've come across MVC as a concept before, you maybe have noticed that different platforms have different nuances as to how they interpret MVC, and Joomla in that respect is no different. And within Joomla, perhaps differently as you've encountered before, the view is what is responsible for sorting out the data which is to be displayed on the website, and the TMP, these are called layout files. The layout is responsible for actually outputting that to the website. So some MVC systems, you've got the controller is responsible for sorting out the data which is to be displayed. In Joomla it's really the view, and in particular it's the view.html.php file which is responsible for getting the data together. So if we look at this one, for example, we will see things where it's setting up item this and item that. Right, and these are the sorts of things which are actually processed in the default.php file, and in the default.php file you'll see a lot of HTML tags which you won't really see in the view files. Similarly, in our Hello World example, we have got a view.html, and this is just setting up the data in this message, and then in our default.php file this is outputting, using that data and just outputting it in a header tag. So that's really the way that Joomla works. It uses the views, as I say, to collect the data and get it ready, and it uses these other files which are called layouts to actually output the data onto the web page. If you look, for example, in archive, if you look at this in a bit more detail, you'll see that the class that we've got here is content view archive, and the reason for that is that the way Joomla works is that the first bit here represents the component, and then there's a standard term view, and the next term represents the view. So a component can have many views, just in the same way as on your Joomla site you can have articles. You can display the same article in a number of different web pages in a number of different ways. So really what you're doing here is you're selecting how you want an article or a set of articles displayed, and you're linking that to a menu item. So in terms of our Hello World view, this one here, this is called Hello World View, Hello World, and you maybe wondered why we had Hello World twice. Well, it's really because the first Hello World relates to the component, and the second hello world relates to the view. So we've actually called our view hello world as well as the component being called hello world, but we could have called that something different obviously. If we go to article, this one will see another view, and if we edit that we find content view article. Same way, component view and then the name of the view. So let's try setting up a link to one of these. Let's set up a category blog. And I actually set an article, put a dummy article into the site and give it a category of special. So this is the one that we're going to be picking up here, and we'll save that. And then when we go to our site, we see this new entry, specials, and we click on that, it comes up with that particular article. So it's interesting here that this is the link which really relates to that menu item. We can see content, so it's accessing the content component. The view that we want is category, and the layout is blog. So if we go to our directory structure, this is the view and this is the layout that we would be expecting there. However, if we look at the URL here, it doesn't really have any information about the view or the layout. And in fact, if we click on F12 to put the developer tools on, and click on net. This is the URL that we're passing, hello world index.php specials. There's no real information about how to get to that particular page. What I mean is there's no information really to map that URL that we've actually accessed to this information here, which is really what Joomla needs in order to be able to run this particular view and layout. So really as you might guess, the way that Joomla works is it stores that information in the database, and it stores it in the menu database table. And if we look at this, we can go down to the bottom and we can see that menu item that we just put in, specials, and we can see that it's mapping it to this here. And really what Joomla is doing, whenever it comes and sees this menu, it really maps that menu to this sort of thing here. So what we're going to do is we'll go along to change the content, and we'll go into the content.php. And notice here, this input, it gets get application input, and really this is associated with information about the incoming HTTP requests. So just as a matter of interest, we're going to actually dump that variable to the screen. and then we'll go back to our site and reload this page. And what it will do is it will dump that input. And what you see is that if you go down here, you can see that the option content, view is category, layout is blog, and the ID of our category is actually 8. So really what Joomla is doing is kind of looking at the URL that has been put in, and then it's mapping that to the information which is in the database, which really enables the rest of the code to work out that we need to run the view within the category subdirectory, and the layout that we need to run is blog.htp within the tmpl directory. You'll also notice that on this menu for editing the menu item, we've got a whole lot of variables here, a whole lot of options. If we go along and let's add our hello world. You see there are different tabs which appear. So this has got 4 or 5. If we go to, say, something like articles and the one that we select, category blog, we will see there's a lot more which appear. And the reason for that is that some of these items or some of these tabs which are here relate to the menu option. For example, how it's displayed on the page. For example, is there an image which is there? And some of these options here relate to the page, the target page that the menu item is pointing to. So because our hello world is a very basic one, we don't have many of these here. But if you look at detail at some of these XML files under content, for example here, blog.xml, we'll see that there's a stack more information than just this sort of thing. There's a whole lot of information about fields and everything, and really those fields and those definitions in that XML file relate to these options here within the menu item. So some of these tabs relate to, as I said, how the menu item itself is displayed, and some of these tabs relate to options associated with the target page. And if you look again at the database, if you scan over to the right, you see this thing here, and I'll just expand this a little bit here. And if you look through these, you can see similarities between these and the menu items which are over here, these options over here. So what Joomla is doing is it's reading the XML file, and then from all of those field definitions is actually building up these tabs and the options here, and then it's taking what has been selected and it's putting it into the database in this sort of kind of name value pair sort of structure, so that whenever a link is made, someone clicks on that link, it will recognize that URL. It will then find information like the option, the view and layout, so that it can process that, and also these things sort of here, so that it can actually process those options within the files there. So hopefully that's been a little intelligible. One thing you may be wondering about is whenever we have got this, where is it? It's view.html file. It's got this parameter TPL. TPL is null, as it says there, and you may be wondering, as I was, about when that is actually used. And to be honest, I haven't a clue. If you go to Google and put in something like JView legacy and display, which is where this function is, you will see a link like this, which will enable you to find out documentation on that display function. And you can click on display, and you can see it executes and displays a template script. But I've tried various options, setting various options on these here, for example setting the template style, and still it comes up with TPL being none, so I'm not really sure under what circumstances TPL is actually going to be useful there, because every time it seems that it's called display with no arguments, so TPL just gets set to the default value of null. So what I have done is let me just get this document open. What I've done is put down a list of the key things to understand when we're talking about views and layouts. The first is that one menu item really relates to one web page, and the same article or the same set of articles can be presented in many different ways on different web pages. So we find that a component can have many views. Each view is responsible for sorting out the data set to be shown on the web page. Each view has a unique view name. The code is in com.component, com_content or com_hello world views view name /viewName.html.php, and the class is called component, then view name. And each view can have many layouts. So for example, the same set of data can be displayed in different ways. For example, it could be displayed as a list format or in a table format. And each layout is then responsible for generating the HTML output for that data set. And each layout has indeed also a layout name, and the code is in com_component views view name tmpl and then layout name.php, and it's the associated XML file that actually generates the menu item type that enables you to select it as a menu item type. So whenever we're adding that new menu item type, the types of the menu items and the options are actually built from that XML file. They're stored in the database in that menu table, and then when the user clicks on the menu item on the site, Joomla sets up HTTP sudo input to allow you to find the view, the layout and the data set. So hopefully that's been a little use to you. Thanks very much for listening.